racing. And I ain't got no time for you, said to me. My mind racing. I ain't got no time to be with.
Growing up in a Christian household is not what you think, or maybe not what you expect. If you're anything like me, you grew up in a Christian household, or if you're even more like me, maybe your parents are pastors and a director of some nonprofit. My dad, he's the senior pastor of a multi-site church in LA, in Los Angeles. They got campuses in Santa Clarita, East LA, North Hollywood, all over. And then my mom, she's a director of this nonprofit of anti-human trafficking. And it's really cool. My parents, they are superheroes, but it's come with a lot of challenges, to be honest. Let's take it back to elementary. This is a great season of life where my parents helped me, build a foundation for Jesus. And I got baptized when I was 8 years old in 2014. Dang, that was a long time ago. Shoot, I'm old, man. Anyways, yeah, I got baptized 2014, and I guess the quick little story of it, my best friend, he was cussing people out and bullying people a bit, and I'm like, yo, bro, I can't mess with you no more, like, we can't be friends. And I went home crying because that was my best friend. I just lost a friend. And my parents told me how I should have forgiveness for him, and they realized how Jesus made me realize how Jesus has forgiveness for me. And I'm like, dang, I want to live like that. I want to have forgiveness for everyone that does anything against me or against others. I want to love people the way Jesus has loved me. And so I decided that I want to follow in those steps of Jesus, and I decided to get baptized. But even though, it was going great and I was getting a foundation of Jesus early on in elementary, it also came with a lot of struggles. Me and my family, my parents are in full-time ministry, and so that means we struggled financially. We struggled with just having time to spend with each other. We were, there was times where we were living off of food stamps, times where we were moving from apartment to apartment, school to school. It was rough. It wasn't super fun. And then when my parents, just even thinking about like how they were always at the church working, how they are always at people's houses, like counseling or doing that type of stuff, it just left me at home, missing my parents, not getting to hang out with them much. But then whenever they would come home, they were stressed out because of how hard they've been working all week. Ministry, you don't take time off. You don't clock in, you don't clock out. It's just 24/7 you are working. People are going to call you at 2 a.m. to talk to the pastor. And my parents, I've experienced that, and it kind of sucked because when my parents would come home, I had things that I wanted to share, like about, if I was stressed out or if I was having a hard day at school, but I would actually keep it to myself because I didn't want to add more to their plate, more to the things that they were already stressed about, already of the congregation that they're having to take care of and shepherd. And maybe a little deeper, I think it was, I didn't want to add more to my parents' plate, but more so, I felt this pressure to be a perfect child. More in middle school. Elementary, I was like not wanting to add stress to my parents' plate. But as I was getting older, I started to feel this pressure to be perfect. Seeing my dad up on stage teaching messages all the time, seeing my mom discipling other women and other families in the church. I would think people would view my parents as these holy people. And so I felt this pressure to be a holy son. And I wanted to be viewed as someone that doesn't mess up, a son that has it all together. And going even deeper into that, I think another layer of it is because I didn't want to ruin my parents' reputation in any way. My parents did have a very good reputation in the church and in the town that we were in. And so I felt like, if people saw me messing up in church, what are they going to think of my parents? Is it going to ruin my family's reputation? Is it going to ruin my own personal reputation? And so I was always, making sure I was being kind to people, serving people, helping anyone in any way I can. And then in school, it would even apply that way too. I was always being kind to people, kind of my friends, but it led to people actually bashing me a bit for that. And I remember in school, people starting to call me goody two shoes or like, you know, nice guy. And I honestly got tired of it. I'm gonna be honest. I got tired of being called the nice guy, being tired of being seen as the goody two shoes. And so this led to a season of me kind of rebelling a little bit. And I started being mean to people. And I started saying things that weren't nice to my classmates, and me walking around the hallways feeling insecure, feeling angry, and just not happy. I was in a really dark season, and I felt really far from what my parents have taught me of growing up in a Christian household, you know. I didn't realize this, but the reason like my parents were teaching me to be kind to people, to be loving to people, teaching me to be joyful and just treating others how I wanted to be treated, wasn't so people can view me in a certain way, so people can view me to be the perfect pastor's son or to keep our family reputation good, but it's just because that's how Jesus treats us. I didn't realize that. I thought it was so we can have this perfect reputation, but they're just teaching me the ways Jesus lives, I guess. And that didn't click in my mind though until high school. This is when I started to realize like why my parents are teaching me these certain things on how to treat people, on how to live. It wasn't for our reputation, but because that's just how Jesus lived. And we're called to be examples of Jesus. And so, yeah, it took a minute for that to click in my mind of these things that my parents were teaching me in our Christian household. And I remember going into this new high school, not knowing anybody. It was a Christian school too, a Christian private school. But surprisingly, there wasn't any other Christians, at least any that I knew of. And it felt really lonely. And I remember going up to this mountaintop we have at our high school that I graduated from. I hiked up there during lunch. Because I didn't have anyone to hang out with. I didn't know where to go. And I also didn't know this, but at the top of the hill, there's this cross. And once I got up there, as soon as I saw the cross, I fell down and I started crying and I started weeping. And everything just kind of flashed before my eyes. And all the things that my parents have taught me, all the things that, you know, our family has gone through, all the struggles, it led to this moment of me realizing that I want to be a leader. It's kind of weird, but I remember falling on my knees, crying, and saying, God, I ask that you would just give me an opportunity to be a leader in this high school, to be a leader, to be an example of Jesus, to show others how Jesus has loved me and forgiven me, God. I ask that you would help me to have mercy and grace for these people. And time flew by, and I actually ended up praying for 3 hours up on this mountaintop. I think it was 3 hours. It was a long time. You know, life kind of went on, and I kind of forgot about it, that moment a little bit, and I got sucked into this hole of trying to fit in with everyone else. And so I started going to parties, a lot of parties, like parties, okay, though, like people were smoking, people were getting drunk, taking shots, people sleeping around, people making out on the couch right there next to me. Like, I've been to some wild stuff, seen some crazy stuff. And it got to this point though where I'm like, God, what am I doing, man? Like, how did I get here? I asked the Lord if he can just take me back to that mountaintop experience I had with him. That moment when I asked if he can give me the opportunity to be a leader to others, to be an example to others. And so he reminded me of that moment. And after that, I started getting involved into sports, theater, anything I possibly could. And I started, you know, getting to know people. People were getting to know me. And my desires for going to parties shifted. Originally, I was going to parties to just hang out with people, just be there for the vibes, you know what I'm saying? But it started to change to, like, man, let me go to these parties intentionally to be an example, to help people. And I know it sounds weird, maybe some people are like, yo, you're Christian, like, why would you even be in those environments? Why would you want to go to parties? But man, just look at Jesus and the way he's living. He was hanging out with sinners all the time. And so I was going to these parties intentionally, trying to just be an example. And I wasn't, involving myself in drinking, taking shots. I wasn't smoking. I wasn't sleeping around with people. And so I was just going with the intention of being an example and showing people like how you can live and have fun in high school without involving yourself in these things that are just going to separate you from the Lord. And it was hard, though. I'm going to be honest. There was a lot of moments that I was very tempted, things that were, being handed over to me that I could have just taken. But I believe God was at work in me, and he remembered that moment when I asked to be a leader, to be an example. I think this is when the prayer was being answered and God was working in my life, and he actually helped me to stay strong, to not fall into those temptations. And then senior year, I remember this is the opportunity where my leadership stepped up some more, and I got to start a youth group at my dad's church. And so I did that, and man, this is when things really just clicked in my mind. Things when I realized like prayers were being answered, and God was just really coming into my life. He was really becoming real to me, and I realized what I was starting to be called to, and that was to be a pastor. I want to be a pastor. That's what I'm pursuing to do. That's what I feel called to do. I want to serve people. I love Jesus so much, and I want others to love him the way I do. And so that's kind of my whole experience. I don't even know if any of that makes sense. I was kind of rambling. But yeah, there are a lot of struggles of being raised in a Christian household, but there are a lot of strengths to it. And I believe my parents have helped me value things that most, Gen Zers don't value. And that's what I want to share on this channel. I want to share the things that, us young Christians should value, and how we can stick to it, though. Because there are so many things in this world that are just trying to get our attention and take us away from our God-given purpose. And so the purpose of this channel is to show you guys how to live a young, fun life for Jesus, and how to, go to a school when it feels like there's no other Christians. Go to a school when you feel lonely. Because I've experienced all of those things, and I want to share with you guys my experience and how I've gone through it, and how I'm currently getting through it and living through it. And so even to show the behind the scenes of what it's like, being a pastor's kid, of planting a church, of doing full-time ministry. And so I'm excited. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a great season. I'll see you guys in the next one.